Imagine waking up in total darkness. There is no sun, no clock, and no sound except for the rhythmic dripping of water on cold stone. You feel like you've been asleep for an hour, but in reality, it's been 12. You think it's Monday, but on the surface, it's already Thursday. In 1962, a young French geologist named Michel Siffre decided to become a human guinea pig. He climbed 130 meters underground into a glacier cave, not to study the rocks, but to destroy his own sense of time. He wanted to know, if we are stripped of the world, what remains of the human rhythm? This is the story of 63 days spent in the abyss and the terrifying discovery of what happens when the mind loses its anchor to reality. Michel Siffre was only 23 years old. He wasn't a prisoner, and he wasn't being punished. He was a scientist. His laboratory was the Scarrison Glacier Cave in the Ligurian Alps, a brutal, vertical abyss of ice and mud. On July 16, 1962, Siffre said goodbye to the sun. He lowered himself into a cavern where the temperature hovered just above freezing and the humidity was 100%. He had a small tent, a bed, a desk, and enough food for 2 months. His only link to the outside world was a one-way telephone line to a team of researchers on the surface. But there was a rule. They could never tell him what time it was. Every time he woke up, ate, or went to sleep, he had to call them and report his subjective time. He was about to find out that the human brain is a terrible clock. The first few days were manageable. Siffre spent his time reading and organizing his camp. But quickly, the silence began to weigh on him. Without the cycle of day and night, his internal clock, his circadian rhythm, began to drift. Siffre tried to keep a diary, but the entries started to make no sense. He would wake up feeling refreshed, call the surface and say, "I think it's 10 a.m. The researchers would look at their watches and see that it was actually 7 p.m. His brain was stretching and compressing time like an accordion. He would spend hours staring at a single point, convinced only minutes had passed. He began to experience a profound sense of temporal vacuum. He wasn't just in a cave. He was drifting in a sea where minutes and days had no shore. By the second month, Siffre's mental state began to deteriorate. The cold was constant. His clothes were always damp, and the absolute darkness outside his small lamp began to feel like a physical weight. He started to suffer from memory loss. He would forget what he had done 5 minutes prior. To cope with the crushing loneliness, he tried to sing, but his voice sounded alien in the damp air. He even tried to befriend a spider, but it died, leaving him devastated. The most disturbing part was his perception of the call. He would call the surface to say he was going to sleep, thinking he had been awake for a normal 16-hour day. In reality, he had sometimes been awake for 36 hours straight, or had slept for 15 hours, thinking it was a short nap. His body had settled into a 24.5-hour cycle, but his mind couldn't keep up. On September 14th, the team on the surface told Siffre the experiment was over. It was time to come up. Siffre was confused. He checked his diary and his own mental calculations. He argued with them through the phone. According to his record, it was only August the 20th. He was convinced he had another 25 days left in the cave. When he finally reached the surface, the sunlight blinded him. He had lost a month of his life, not because he had been unconscious, but because his mind had simply failed to register the passing of 25 entire days. He had aged 2 months, but his brain had only lived through 1. Michel Siffre's experiment changed science forever. He proved that humans have an internal biological clock that functions even without the sun. He founded the field of human chronobiology, which today helps us understand everything from jet lag to the psychological health of astronauts on long-term space missions. But Siffre's journey also revealed a darker truth about our nature. We think we are independent, free-thinking individuals, but the 1962 experiment showed us that we are deeply, biologically tethered to the planet. Without the sun to guide us, our identity begins to dissolve. Freedom, it seems, is an illusion maintained by the light of day. Michel Siffre went into the dark to find time, but instead he found that once you lose the rhythm of the world, you very quickly lose yourself.